Rusty Streetman was an Isle of Palm City Council member for 4 years. Now he wants to return to City Council to tackle issues such as beach renourishment and shoal management. I talk one-on-one with Rusty for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Rusty Streetman, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, hi there, Quentin. It's good to talk to you again. It's been a while, my friend.
Likewise, yes, sir. Needless to say, you are a former Isle of Palm City Councilman, and I know, according to the Island Eye News back in September, you actually announced that you were run for the open Isle of Palm's council seat after former council member Elizabeth Campson gave her resignation. You are actually introducing yourself as, quote, an independent voice for all. And obviously, you said that there has been significant good and positive progress, that is, made on major issues the council is dealing with on the island, but there's still much more to do. Tell me, why the Isle of Palm City Council? Why again?
Well, I tell you, Quentin, the projects that we're involved in on Isle of Palms are all important and very high-ticket, expensive projects. And I've been a big part of that over the past 4 years until I, lost my council seat last fall by 30 votes or so. But what I wanted to do, once this resignation came up, I saw an opportunity here to go back on council, get involved again, and help finish and bring to completion the expensive and very high priority projects that we do have on the island, such as drainage and beach renourishment and parking, traffic safety. There's a number of things we have in the queue that I want to be a part of to work towards completion over the next 3 years.
What projects that are in place right now that you want to help complete if elected back to the office?
Well, number one is drainage. We've done a lot on drainage. I was chairman of the Public Services and Facilities Committee when we finished the outfall project, which we call Phase 3 drainage. And the outfall project keeps the tidal water from coming back on the island, if we have a storm surge. That was finished. That was very expensive and very complicated, a lot of permitting to be done. So now we're moving on to Phase 4 drainage, which is going to be removing some of the storm water off of areas like Palm Boulevard, which tends to flood quite a bit in places on Palm Boulevard and some of the beach access paths. So Phase 4 will help get that water effectively off of Palm Boulevard, a very heavily traveled state highway on our island. And then we have some other small drainage projects also around the island that will help with stormwater and help with drainage. We have a system of old drainage ditches on this island that were put in place back when the island was first developed by J.C. Long. And those ditches have been effective, but they also are clogged with silt. We do have and palm fronds and things like that get into the ditches as it when it rains and erodes. Sure. We do have a team here on the island that do, help with the ditches. They come out here, and some of them are our employees too that get in there and dig those ditches out. But we really need to put a bigger effort towards getting those things not only dug out, but replacing some of the old drainage pipes, because some of the pipes are just very old and are breaking apart and don't effectively help get the water off the island. So that's a part of it also. But going back to your original question, yes, drainage is the number one priority for me and for many others.
And I know that you've been on the island for many, many years. I visited there a lot whenever I can. But when you look around that particular island, Rusty, where exactly are these pipes basically, antiquated?
Well, they're underground in a lot of cases. What it is, you'll see that as you walk up and down the avenues, you'll see the ditches, and I'm sure you've seen them because you run and walk out here quite a bit. And some of the viaducts or pipes are under the sand, so to speak. And so getting to them is very difficult. You almost have to dig those out and replace them. So that and we really, I don't think we even really completely know the entire drainage network we do have. We know most of it through diagrams and through old plats and things like that. But it's going to take some time, some research, and also some expense to really get those up to speed. And we have to have them. We're a low-lying barrier island, and we really need to have those to help get storm water off of the island.
I have to ask this particular question, but based off of your experience on Isle of Palm City Council from 2020 to last year, how much money should be estimated or allocated towards this particular project?
Well, it's millions. I mean, if you could snap your fingers and go in overnight to fix all of our drainage problems, you'd probably be talking somewhere around 30 to 40 million dollars to do it all. So we have to do it in stages. We have to do it not only proactively as much as we can, but we need to set priorities on where that money needs to spend. That's why we started with the outfalls first,
Sure.
to control the tidal surge.
Sure.
And and now we're moving on to stormwater for Palm Boulevard and then the smaller projects. So it's very expensive, and over time, it will take a lot of money.
Wow. I want to get back to that in just a second, Rusty, but you just mentioned obviously the outfalls. I know that you all are now on phase 4. So how much has that cost the city so far?
It's just getting underway, Quentin. They've just started phase 4. In fact, I'm not even sure it's completely started yet. That's going to concentrate on Palm Boulevard between 38th and 40th Avenue. So there really hasn't been any real building that's begun. All the permits are in place. Everything's ready to go.
Okay.
And now that we're in the off season, the work will get underway. And hopefully, like every other thing out here, we try to time these projects so we do them in the off season, so that we don't snarl traffic during the summer season.
Yeah.
So that really gives us, really only gives us about 8 months that we can time these projects. That we can get in there and get them done without affecting our tourist traffic and heavy traffic during the summer season.
And hopefully there won't be any winter storms either.
I hope not. I mean, the one we had last year really threw us for a loop and surprised everybody. But those nor'easters, as you know, they can do a lot of damage, and certainly did a lot out here as it did in other places. So, again, I mean, it doesn't matter where you live; you're subject to some major catastrophe coming storm-wise. I mean, look at our friends and neighbors in the upstate and in western North Carolina, and then south of us in Florida and Georgia. I mean, what we experienced with this latest catastrophe that came along, and you never would have imagined it would have been that bad. So, Mother Nature and storm patterns, it's not something that we can effectively control.
Right. Those storm patterns that you just mentioned, what exactly is the city's comprehensive plan to deal with those, just in case it happens?
Well, what we do is, you'd have to break that up into different pieces. I mean, we're working now. We have a beach committee in place that's coming up with some ideas to generate more revenue so that we can proactively re-nourish the beaches, get out ahead of it, and help hold off erosion, and also build up our beaches so we have a nice dry sand beach. Our beach, for the most part, is a beautiful beach and in great shape. But we do have right now 2 hot spots, one on the north end and one on the south end, that are worrisome because there's significant erosion in both. So we do have a beach renourishment fund that comes out of ATAX dollars that are generated. We're looking for additional revenue streams so that we can have money in the bank to handle these kind of projects going forward. We don't get any real adequate state help and funding. None of the beaches do. And so we have to pretty much do it on our own. We did have Senator Chip Campson, who was able to get us $1 million grant for renourishment, but that's it. We're not part of a budgetary expense for the state legislature to help any of the beach communities. So we have to pretty much do it on our own, or form a partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, that sort of thing. So very complicated. And I don't know if that completely answered your question that you just asked. I might have just answered part of it. So let me know if you need to follow up here.
Oh, no worries. No worries. It's all good. And incidentally, we've been playing phone tag for the past couple of days. He just called me Friday, but I'm hoping to get Senator Chip Campson on Quentin's Close-Ups to talk about this in depth soon. Yeah. But you talked about those 2 hotspots, obviously, when it comes to erosion. Where else do you see those hotspots potentially opening up next?
Well, they could happen anywhere on a barrier island, but historically, and I've been here 40 years, and I lived on I lived on the beachfront for 27 of the 40 years.
Huh.
And the beach in front of me over those 40 years are created instead of eroded. And that's pretty much in the center of the island.
Right.
So we have a very healthy center of the island,
Yes.
but being a drumstick shaped barrier island with an inlets on both sides, they tend to erode. Now, historically, over the time I've been here in the last 40 years, our biggest problem has always been on the northeast side up here, which is Beechwood East, in Wild Dunes, up in that area there near Dewey's Inlet.
Oh, yes.
Historically, that's been the hot spot for erosion. The cycle has had it coming and going. Every 6 or 7 years, it needed to be replenished in some way, or at least scraped, sandbags, you name it. But the past year and a half to 2 years, we've seen it develop down on the Breach Inlet side. On the west side, or I guess some people call it the south side, but this is an east-west island.
Yes.
So now we have the problem down there, and we've done a lot of sand scraping. There's been sandbags put in. We do have a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers beneficial use project that will be coming our way. It's over a year late already, so it hasn't happened, but that will be coming our way, and they will pump some sand from the spoil sites up to the beach, and then the city will distribute that sand back towards the land to hopefully stabilize a dune system there. So right now we have 2 hot spots, and we need to, not only address those effectively, but also prepare that if we have others that develop on this 7-mile long beach, we can handle those also.
Oh man, and I've spent many work days working between Sullivan's Island, Alva Palms, and Breach Inlet. What a magnificent place there. But where else do you want the city to establish those dune systems next?
I'm sorry, Quentin, I didn't quite understand that.
Oh yes, sir. I know you mentioned about the U.S. Armed
Army Corps,
projects and what they'll do eventually as far as establishing dune systems. Where else on the island do you hope that happens?
Well, right now it really needs to be. Really needs to, for the U.S. Army Corps project, it needs to be done on that Breach Inlet.
Okay.
That's the only area that they will be addressing.
Okay.
They're working on Sullivan's Island, your Breach Inlet, to stabilize theirs. When they finish that, it'll take them 4 or 5 weeks to redeploy over here, and then that's going to take them probably a couple of months to get it handled on this Breach Inlet side. Now, we do have a natural shoal, if you will, of sand that is up on the northeast end that forms and eventually, historically, attaches itself to the island. That comes from the sand coming out of Dewey's Inlet.
Right.
It builds up, and right now it's causing some erosion because it hasn't really attached itself to the island yet. So what we're hoping to do, and what we're in the process of doing, is getting permitting so that we can accelerate that shoal and get that sand on up to the island and get it attached. And that should give us a nice, wide, dry sand beach up around Beechwood East, where we have the other problem.
Wow. And that'll lead me down to back over to what you just mentioned a second ago. But let me ask you this. I know the Alva Palms submitted a permit application to both the USACE and the State Department of Environmental Services for a shoal management project that would actually benefit the beach in the area of Wild Dunes, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Since that particular area has little to no public access, Rusty, do you believe Wild Dunes will agree to fund any of this particular project?
Wild Dunes in the past has always, they funded their share. I mean, Wild Dunes, they pay their way, quite honestly, because we do not have, even though it's a public beach in Wild Dunes, you can walk it, run it, bike it, whatever, and get in there. There really isn't any additional public parking or access to the beach in Wild Dunes. That's a Wild Dunes decision to make. If they wanted to provide more, that would be purely up to them, not the city. So I just foresee that going forward, unless it's a catastrophic hurricane or something like that, Wild Dunes they would pay their share, and the city would help out also, and maybe the state would help a little bit, but unless it's a catastrophic hurricane or nor'easter or something like that just comes through and really destroys the beach, there won't be any public funding for it other than what the city and Wild Dunes provides.
And altogether, with the city and the Wild Dunes, how much of all those funds are there?
Well, I mean, over the years, I'd be hard pressed to tell you how many millions of dollars have been spent, but it's been significant. Because every 6, 7, 8 years or so, you have to be doing some significant work up there on that end.
Yeah.
So it's an expensive project.
Wow.
And Wild Dunes, again, they have a fund that they have of their own. That's not a city fund,
right?
And that's how they end up paying for that. Plus, I think they can make some assessments on some of their home and condo owners also.
Are there any plans, Rusty, to actually enhance public access to that section of the beach?
And that's a Wild Dunes call. I know that they had. I think the Wild Dunes Community Association had from what I hear, had expressed in their minutes that they were discussing something in regards to that. But I don't know where that will go. Not living in Wild Dunes,
right?
And then, of course, the city not having any direct control over that.
Sure.
It really would have to be a Wild Dunes Community Association and resident discussion as to whether they would open the Wild Dunes up for additional public parking. My guess would be that they won't do that, but that's just purely a guess.
Is this work really necessary, Rusty, since the sand shore will naturally attach to the shore, as you mentioned earlier, 12 to 18 months?
Well, yeah. See, what's happening is what you'd like to do is the reason you want to accelerate the shoal management process and get it attached to the beach is because right now, because it's not completely attached, it actually is causing a little more erosion. The dynamics of the surf and the tide. Yeah. So right now it's doing a little more damage because it hasn't really attached itself. So there are sandbags that have gone in up there. The new sandbags, the ones that don't really break apart as well. So these are much better sandbags than what was used in the past.
Wow.
And they have done that kind of work to try to hold that off. But if we can get that shoal attached, then that itself will stabilize the beach, and we should have a nice dry sand beach in that area that will be a lot more healthy going forward. And and then several years from now, we'll go through the same process again. It will, history repeats itself on a barrier island.
Well, let me ask you this bluntly: what is the actual amount of funds necessary for beach restoration projects over the next 30 years?
I've heard estimates. I know the mayor has spoken. He's spoken of them. The city council, the beach committee that they have with the mayor chairs.
Oh yeah.
If I remember correctly, and again, don't hold me completely to this. We're talking over the next decade or two. I mean, you could be talking $30 million that we need to stay ahead of it, and that could end up being on the low side given the cost and the accelerated cost that we experience historically.
Wow. And I'm probably being redundant, Mr. Rusty, but what is the estimate funds needed for an annual basis of actual beach restoration that is on the beach?
Depends on the storms. It's there will be some years that you'd have to spend very little because things are stable and you get lucky and you don't have a storm.
Right.
So our beach renourishment fund that we accumulate through ATAX. I think that currently has around $2 million in it, somewhere in that neighborhood. So that's what we generate. So hopefully on a normal year, that would be adequate to take care of just a normal year where you don't have erosion hotspots. Yeah. But again, it's hard to say. You have to build a fund and plan for this rainy day, the rainy, stormy day. So good weather, bad weather, you want to be prepared for it. And and of course, climate is changing. We all know that climate changes. And it looks like that in the future there will be more reason because of climate change and a little bit of sea level rise that may happen over a period of time that we have to have more funds in place because that could threaten us more erosion wise.
I know you'll have those funds in place for that. But what exactly is the climate change plan from the city of Isle of Palms perspective?
Well, they're working now, and I think they're just getting started on it. A sea level rise adaptation plan.
Sure.
I have a tough time with that word
Yeah.
for whatever reason, and it's to look at things that we need to do, and other communities are doing the same thing also to try to be proactive to prepare for rising tides and rising water over the next 25, 30 years. So there are plans being put in place on that. I haven't really dug into that yet because it's really just beginning,
Right.
you know. But that's certainly, if I get reelected on council, that's really something I'd want to really jump into along with the rest of council and see what the plans are and what kind of effective plans we could make to deal with that.
What exactly are the residents saying about this on the Isle of Palms?
About what? About
The climate change plan that the city's
Uh,
enacting.
I think it's been relatively low key in terms of
Okay.
just the average resident on the island. I think
sir.
all residents are engaged in wanting to make sure that we protect our beautiful beach and our great waterways and creeks. So I mean they're engaged to that extent anyway. But unless they're engaged in the day-to-day governance of the island and the committees that are going on, that sort of thing, then they probably don't know a lot about it.
Mm.
Other than when you live here, you expect the city and its government to keep you safe, to pick up your trash and to make sure that they keep the beaches beautiful.
Yeah, and I got to pick up. Yeah, a matter of fact, I got to bring the trash can in later on from where I live.
I got to get my recycle in too.
Oh yeah. I think I was coming tomorrow. Yeah, Friday. I just saw the sign in.
We have ours today.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Somebody out in North Charleston out. One of our neighbors had a sign out there that says, "Oh, recycling day is tomorrow," so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
But let me ask you this. I know this is a big question that's coming up these days, obviously about raising taxes. Do you expect that property taxes, business licenses, parking fines, and parking fees will actually increase in order to provide more funding for beach renourishment?
Well, that's something that committee is looking at, the one that the mayor chairs and has a number of residents and some city council members on, current city council members. They have a chart that they have that lists the things that the city controls, and there's also some things that the city has no authority over, no control over, state and federal.
Right.
And then there's a couple items in regards to Wild Dunes that we previously mentioned that were on there too, which Wild Dunes would control. So it's the revenue streams that they looked at for the city. I know that they do have on there the possibility of increasing license fees for businesses, increasing parking fees. That's a couple of the items that are on there. But again, it's early on, Quentin, and they haven't really brought that forward and made those solid recommendations to the rest of city council. That committee cannot unilaterally make any changes without having the full approval of council. So, that's the way it works. You got 9 people out here counting the mayor. Right now we have 8, so we got to fill the seat.
Right.
But those 9 people all have equal votes, and they should all weigh in equally along with feedback from citizens to decide what would increase or not and how we would generate the revenue needed. The biggest thing I will tell you that we need that is out of our control is the state help that we really need, all the beach communities need, that we have more money provided to us to keep beaches healthy in the state of South Carolina. That's really a legislative thing that has to happen. And we have lobbyists like many other communities have. And I know that they're going to be tasked with trying to help lobby to get more of those dollars that would go to replenish the beaches, not only on Isle of Palms, but in South Carolina. You think about it, really in terms of tourist revenue, the billions of dollars that come into South Carolina, about half of it is generated by our beaches, our beach community. So if you let them go the wrong way and get destroyed or damaged, then that revenue goes down and it makes South Carolina's economy less healthy as a result.
When you think about tourism, it seems like it was just yesterday when all of this happened. But how many tourists actually came to the Isle of Palms this past summer?
Well, it was, gosh, we had our normal weekend traffic. I can tell you that where it increases to 20,000 vehicles or more per day on the weekend.
Wow.
And our population on a given summer weekend or summer week, I should say, the 13, 14 weeks that we have will swell to 35 to 40,000 people versus the 4,200 or so we have out here permanently. So, about 10 times what we would have on a regular basis. So it's, during the high season between Memorial Day and Labor Day, the island is got a lot of people on it now. And I'm told, and I haven't really dug into these numbers
Yes, sir.
heavily, but I'm told by the property management people that handle short-term rentals,
Oh, yeah.
that the short-term rental activity reduced some this past year because after COVID and in the couple of years past COVID,
Right.
it really exploded. I mean, a lot of people, were either staying here during COVID or came after COVID, and we really generated a lot of revenue that way. Now that's kind of leveled out because now people are traveling abroad again. They're going to different places. People aren't, other than the hassle of flying internationally. People have discovered they can go to different places on this continent and have a good time. So they're devoting some of their dollars to those areas rather than just staying domestic right now.
This is something I should ask Helen Hill and those folks over at the Charleston Convention and Visitors Bureau. But what is your plan to bring more tourists to the Isle of Palm so that you all can generate more money?
Well, I know Helen Hill very well, and I was fortunate enough while I was on council to serve on the board of governors
Sure.
for CVB for 2 years, representing Isle of Palms. In every municipality, the 10 municipalities that CVB represents, each has a designated council member to be on their board of governors. So I was very close to that situation, and the whole strategy really is not to bring more tourists. Because Charleston is very well known around this world. The strategy is really to make it a more quality destination, in that the tourists that come here, the visitors we have, will not only enjoy the beauty of Charleston and the beauty of the beaches and the parks and the waterways, but they will spend more on a daily basis when they come here also. So it's all about average daily rate or average daily return, I guess you should say.
Yes, sir.
So, and that's going up. That's actually going up. So that's one of those things that we actually keep the tourist dollars stay pretty solid.
Yes, sir.
Because they're spending more when they get here. That's kind of a quality trip. They get here and they enjoy our restaurants, they enjoy our businesses, not only on the island here when they're staying here, in our accommodations and wild dunes like Sweetgrass.
Oh, yes.
But also they make those frequent visits downtown and to other attractions and spend money that way too. So that keeps our economy healthy. And I got to tell you, I think Helen Hill and her team at CVB Explore Charleston have done a fantastic job over the years of helping develop Charleston as a quality destination. And I know that they're not all about just bringing more tourists in. They just want to make sure that these trips are quality trips and really helping Charleston stay a number one destination.
And I have two last questions for you, Rusty. You talked earlier about those short-term rentals. How many short-term rentals are there right now on the island?
Well, we have right now. It's about let's see, counting condos and townhomes.
Oh yeah,
it's around 1,700 or so, 1,700 to 1,800 all total. Now, some of those are short-term rentals that don't have that they have licenses, but they're not being rented. So that's where you have to really make the distinction too. The condos and the townhomes that were built, not only in Front Beach but in Wild Dunes, a lot of those were built to be rentals. Okay, so they're historically short-term rentals, and this island has always had about 1/3 short-term rentals on it, also, and still we're about the same ratio. what's happened over the past few years is that we've had discussion about installing caps on short-term rentals. And when you have that discussion, even though I personally don't believe we need to install any caps on this island, I stand behind that. We had a referendum that defeated that last fall. Many residents over the past 2 to 3 years have gone out and bought or purchased annual short-term rental licenses just for protection, for fear that there would be a cap put in place and that they would not have, and if they didn't have a license in place, they wouldn't be able to hold on to the property and rent it on a short-term basis, that they may be closed out. So it's kind of it's one of those situations out here that's a little bit controversial, and that some people have really pushed last year for caps on short-term rentals. And my position last year, my position this year as I'm running, is that we don't need a cap. We just need to continue to monitor short-term rentals that we have and make sure the livability issues are enforced, whether it be noise or number of occupants, that sort of thing. Sure. And quite honestly, the statistics we get each month, the reports we get from the Isle of Palms Police Department, show us that we do not have a major problem with livability.
And I want to actually just, I know that the city's kind of low on funds right now when it comes to all that stuff. Would you help enact some sort of a livability department so that they can take care of those issues to maintain and monitor those short-term rentals on the island?
Well, what happens is I don't think we need a livability department. It's kind of burned into the responsibilities that people have anyway. Sure. Our police department handles the livability complaints that come in. When they're called in, they respond to them. So if someone's being noisy, or if there's a situation where they say, okay, there's too many vehicles here, per the code, there's too many people staying there, they can check all that out. But the real management on short-term rentals that a lot of people don't realize is we have, I think, 16 property management companies out here that handle 96% of the short-term rentals on this island.
Wow.
They keep everybody straight to a large extent. Those property management folks, they do not want to have a noisy property or someone that's being out of line as one of their properties. So if they find out, or if they're told that someone is sort of acting out and not behaving themselves, they themselves will go to whoever's renting it and say, "Hey, you've got to stop this," And honestly, Quentin, on this island, because of the weekly rent rate that we have for short-term rentals, which is very, very high compared to some other municipalities, we don't have a lot of renters that come out here on a weekly basis that are out here to cause trouble. They're out here to have fun on the beach. They're out here to enjoy the restaurants, the shopping, the tourist sites, and that sort of thing around Charleston. And they're quality people for the most part. I have short-term rentals around me, and we have no issues with them whatsoever.
Great. And I want to actually just quickly, Rusty, but you mentioned it a tad bit, but what is the status of discussions regarding changing fees for parking on Palm Boulevard that actually is presently free spaces, as you know?
Well, to charge for parking on Palm Boulevard would not be a unilateral decision. That would be something that would have to be done with the approval of South Carolina Department of Transportation. It's a state road.
Right.
And, so the plans, again, that's kind of one of those subjects that gets bandied about. People talk about it. Some people favor paid parking on Palm, some don't. But it can't be imposed by the city alone. And I frankly don't know that paid parking on Palm would be something that would be put in place anytime in the immediate future, because it would take a lot of people agreeing to that, particularly South Carolina Department of Transportation, before something like that could be done. What I do want to see us do is protect our 2015 parking plan, which is in place, that helps control the amount of traffic we have. We have designated free parking places and ADA compliant parking places on Palm Boulevard. So we need to preserve that and even beautify Palm Boulevard to make that more easily accessible and just much better looking. But we don't need to return to having parking on our avenues where the children play and where it's more residential nature.
Are there any plans, or do you, if elected, want to ask the SCDOT to amend that 2015 parking plan?
The 2015 parking plan was really it was approved back in 2015 wholeheartedly by SCDOT. In fact, the former director
Christy Hall
signed off on it too, Christy Hall. So the current director, Justin Turner, I think is his name. I've met him. Philip Pounds and I were at a meeting, I think last year, where we had a nice conversation with him after a lecture he had about parking in rural South Carolina. Really good lecture. But there's been no discussion, as far as I know, that's been reopened with South Carolina Department of Transportation about 2015 parking plan. So as far as I'm concerned and from what I've heard, it's all status quo. It's in place like it's always been. And I don't think that there's any communication or any kind of discussion going on around doing anything differently with it.
Rusty Streetman, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quentin's Close-Ups. And as a footnote, I tried to get Susan Hill Smith on Quentin's Close-Ups, but she wasn't ready for my questions. My old boss, I love it still.
Yeah,
yeah, from the Pokes and Corey days.
Right. I know the history you've had with her, and Susan's a nice lady. She's one of my opponents.
Yes.
And we served on council together for 2 years, so but I know her quite well. Well, it's too bad she wasn't prepared for your questions. I'm always ready for you, Quentin.
Yeah, and also I left Josh Hooser a voicemail message. He never responded, so I hope to get him on before the election begins.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Anyway, it's great talking to you again.
Yes,
and hey, I know you celebrated the Quentin Washington Day, October 13th. You know, I celebrated along with you.
Okay? Oh, yeah, yes, sir.
All right.
Happy belated birthday.
All right. It's good to talk to a celebrity like you every day.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.